Welcome to Disturbing Books for Disturbed Readers, your new favorite way to find the most twisted, depraved, and gruesome reads. Each episode features a to-the-point, spoiler-free review of one of my top picks. If you find that we have similar tastes, then come along. Let's find a new story
to give you nightmares.
This week I'm discussing Maeve Fly by C.J. Leede. By day, Maeve Fly works at the happiest place in the world as every child's favorite ice princess. By the neon night glow of the Sunset Strip, Maeve haunts the dive bars with a drink in one hand and a book in the other, imitating her misanthropic literary heroes. But when Gideon Green, her best friend's brother, moves to town, he awakens something dangerous within her, and the world she knows suddenly shifts beneath her feet. Untethered, Maeve ditches her discontented act and tries on a new persona, a bolder, bloodier one, inspired by the pages of American Psycho. Step aside, Patrick Bateman. It's Maeve's turn with the knife. I'm breaking my own rule with this one. I exclusively talk about, in my opinion, the best of the best in disturbing, extreme, splatterpunk, etc. horror. I only review and talk about 5-star books. Of course, that's subjective. 5-star books to me. This is the first one that I will make an exception for. This one did not quite make it to 5 stars for me. I was honestly very conflicted deciding the rating for it. It's more of a 4 or 4.5, probably a very strong 4.5, but there's just a few things that really make it hard for me to say, yes, this is a 5-star book. But regardless, it's absolutely worth reading and recommending anyway. I still wanted to talk about it, talk about what I liked, the few small things that I didn't like. Nothing really made me actively dislike it. I think there was just a little bit left on the table. I think it had some untapped potential. And so it was hard for me to overlook that and say, yes, this was perfect. Because I just wanted a little more out of it. One of the main things I'd heard about this, and you even heard from the description, is the comparison to American Psycho. And that's even brought up in the book briefly. And those comparisons are appropriate. However, the general vibes are very different. Also, Maeve is very, very different. The similarities between her and Patrick Bateman are that they both are outsiders looking into society. They've both found a way to blend in and function within society while concealing their true nature. But unlike Bateman, Maeve still has several human qualities and actually likes some people. And I really liked that part of her. Throughout a lot of it, you just kind of find out that she's more and more complex than you would maybe assume going into it. Obviously, it's easy to assume just everybody's a psychopath that you're reading about like this. You would not necessarily be wrong in this case, but there's still human elements to her. There's a select few number of people that she really respects or likes or enjoys, which ultimately complicates things for her. So that said, this book more focuses on the unraveling of Maeve than the chaos that ensues after the unraveling, which was a bit to my dismay. That's one of the points where I think there was a lot left on the table. The whole book feels like it's building towards something, and it is, because at the beginning, you're presented Maeve and her life in its most stable form, her life of routine and ritual and structure that allows her to blend in and, as I said, function in society. As it goes on, there's a series of several events that gradually chip away at this, that pull her from her routines, that make her unravel this life that she has set up so safely for herself bit by bit. And I love that. I love this slow build to, not exactly what's coming, but things are going to fall apart. That's why you're here. You don't know how, but they're going to. And it draws it out and just, you can see it happening before your eyes. And I really enjoyed that, but then it felt like you finally get to that point where everything falls apart and shatters around her, and then the book ends. So to me, that was a point of frustration a little bit because that's really the part I was wanting to read about. You don't get that snap so much. It snaps and it's over, and then she doesn't go on a rampage, and you don't see how her life completely falls apart. You don't see any repercussions. You just get to that point, and then it stops. And maybe CJ had a sequel in mind. I will say the ending did not feel that way. You could certainly do that, but regardless, I think the buildup should have been compressed a little bit more, just slightly compressed from what it was, to leave more space for the actual snap at the end. To me, that is my number one thing that really kept it from being 5 stars. There were a couple preferential things also, like there are some pretty messed up and gory scenes, but the details of them are largely glossed over. So while disturbing, it's a lot more accessible than your typical extreme horror book, which is a benefit to many. But going into it, I was hoping for a bit more things that really made me cringe and make it hard to read the page. There were, like I said, disturbing things that would happen, but the book would essentially say, this thing's going to happen, and then it would totally skip it. And you would not even be present while the thing happened or whatever. Essentially the same effect as if in a movie, someone is on the ground and someone else revs up a chainsaw and holds it up over their head, and then the scene cuts to black. You know what's going to happen. They may even say what's going to happen or something like that, but then it just blows by it. So as a fan of extreme horror, to me, that was a little disappointing. But like I said, for other people, that would be a positive, because if you can't handle the super gory descriptions and really visceral, drawn out scenes of violence, while still very screwed up, this book would work a lot better for you. I assume that's not the case if you're listening to this, but for other people. And just so you know, going into this, that did not really take away from the story for me. It would have made it a little more enjoyable for myself. Like I said, that's all preference. Thematically, you could probably guess that this book has some really strong feminist themes and vibes throughout it. There's even some very specific statements and messages in it. It's not super buried under the surface or anything, which, I love reading about unhinged women pushed too far, things like that. So, if that's what you're looking for, obviously, you probably knew from the description that this was for you already. Overall, my experience with this book was, within the first couple of chapters, I was like, this is going to be crazy. And then at some point, it felt like it fell into a little bit of a lull for me, where I was like, okay, let's get this moving, maybe about halfway through. But then I fell back in love with it. It really sucked me back in, and I was just absolutely loving it until the ending. And besides the ending being a little bit rushed and short and me not seeing that snap, it also just was not an ending that I really liked or felt like it was satisfying enough for what it was. But that should not take away from you wanting to read this book. I say these things just as justification that this was not a 5-star book for me, which I hate because, like I said, I enjoyed it a lot until that point. That's why I really struggled after I finished it to determine how I felt about it, because I was like, man, it was so close. It was 5 stars for so long. I knew while I was reading it was going to be 5 stars. And then the ending just knocked it down a little bit. I would still recommend it because the vibes, the story, the theme, the characters, I loved all of it. All of these pieces that you need in the story, I really like and think that they were really, really done well. Just on a little side note, this entire book takes place leading up to and during Halloween in Los Angeles. So that part was also very interesting for me. There were so many dark elements and environments, but then that was always juxtaposed against the colorful, unnamed Disneyland and the Sunset Strip and all of the dramatic, colorful shops and bars and everything around that. I thought that was a super, super cool environment to put someone like Maeve in versus a concrete jungle situation. It was really interesting seeing how she interacted in those spaces and even enjoyed some of it. There's a cheesy tiki bar that she loves. So little things like that I thought gave her a lot of personality and made her like I said, a lot more complex than just your typical sociopath or psychopath or serial killer, whatever. And so this is a great Halloween read. This was my main Halloween read in the week or two leading up to it. I'm a little late recommending it for this year's Halloween and a little early for next year's Halloween, but also with the Los Angeles setting, this wouldn't feel out of place in summer. Regardless, it's a good book, and that's a year-round thing for me. So I did also just want to point out that this is CJ Leede's first novel. This is her debut. And that being said, I mean, aside from any critique or preferential issues I had with this book, this was incredible for a debut. It says that she has 2 more novels coming. I am very excited for that. I can't wait to see what she does next. If this is the very first thing that she has put out, I cannot wait to see what else she has in store for us, because if it's as good as this or if they get better, then we're truly in for a treat. So all in all, if you're interested in the story at all, from what you've heard about it from the description, if you're interested in some of the vibes I talked about or the themes or a strong, complex, anti-hero-esque female protagonist, read this. And honestly, you may get to the end and be like, I don't know what that guy was talking about. This was awesome. I loved it. Everyone has different opinions, different preferences, and this is just mine. So, like I said, not a 5-star book for me, but damn close and absolutely worth recommending regardless. So that's it for today. As always, links to where you can read this, buy this, borrow this will be in the description, and I will see you next time. Thanks for listening.